Jackie and her husband shared how frustrated they were at their daughter's behavior. They just blew it. They expressed that they emotionally told us some things that they regretted, and they were very, very tempted to discipline her corporally as well. Can you recall the last time you felt that you were about to lose it with your child? Today's presentation, we'll be looking at how to connect with your child during times of meltdowns. To share these ideas, I'd be expressing some of the views espoused by Drs. Siegel and Bryson in their book, The Whole Brain Child. The first idea that I'd like to share would be how our brains work. The second idea, how to integrate our brains. And the third would be a tip or technique on how to connect with your child during a meltdown, as espoused by Siegel and Bryson. Let's look at the brain. Siegel and Bryson expressed that the brain has two parts, the right brain and the left brain. The right brain is controlled by emotions. It's regulated by the brain stem and an almond shape, part called the amygdala. The left brain is controlled by logic, and it's focused on helping it houses the cerebral cortex, like right behind our foreheads, the prefrontal cortex and the cerebral cortex, and those parts are responsible for executive functioning, planning, emotional regulation, setting goals, right, etc. Now, what happens and what they're suggesting is that on extremes, the emotional brain or the right brain could be chaotic, right? We get swept away in emotions, we're screaming, we're hollering, we're really, really stressed out. The left brain is on the extreme, it's rigid and it's focused on the law, the rule of the law, the consequences, right? And so on that extreme, we have two extremes, and then we have the middle where we're looking at our child flourishing. That's what we want as parents, for our children to flourish, right? To be resilient and to overcome stressful situations or any situation for that matter, and get to a place where they're just really doing magnificently well. Now, as Siegel and Bryson suggest, as parents, our brains and the part that we're dominantly using to maneuver life starts to rewire our children's brains and how they respond, especially in times of stress or frustration. Now, as parents, we have these times might be when our child is having a meltdown, right? It's which brain are we going to engage? And how can we tell when we are predominantly engaging either our right brain being swept up in the chaos and the emotions, or we're predominantly engaging our left brain? We don't want to deal with the emotions. We want to deal with the consequences, what's right, what's wrong, what's logical. Now, all we have to do is to really think about the last time we were feeling stressed out and how we engaged with our children or with others. Did we scream and shout, or did we listen to our child screaming and shouting and then just sort of wagged our finger at them? Which technique do we dominate with? And when we realize that, here's how we could integrate our right and left brains better, because we do need logic as well as emotion to help us connect. Now, what we do for ourselves as parents, so we need to step away from the stressful situation. And if we cannot step away, we need to find a way to mentally detach from the situation, to buy ourselves some time to respond appropriately. to respond in a way that we would like our children to mirror, and to ensure that we do not cause harm to our children. Okay, so that's what we're going to do to help integrate our brains. Finally, we're going to get into the tip I promised, how to connect with my child when they're having a meltdown. So I'd like you to go back to when your child was a baby. Your child is crying, and then I want to thank Barbara for this tip, because Barbara shared about something called containment. And she said, think about, your child as a baby. Your child is screaming and crying, and you hold your child. Now you hold your child and you help them to feel safe and secure. And you're sort of giving them that warmth, and you're helping them to pull it together. And that's the empathy required for when your child is having a meltdown, that we may be acting out of what we're thinking should be the appropriate thing to do. For example, if your child is having a meltdown, Trinidadians would say, let's give, you want something to cry for, right? And you might get something to cry for, right? But what Siegel and Bryson is suggesting is that we actually have empathy at that moment, which is why we'd have to practice collecting ourselves first to be able to give that empathy, to be able to give that hug, to hold and soothe your child away from the chaos of the emotional right brain, and that sort of, the amygdala is in full panic mode, and it's just creating a lot of obstacles that's preventing the logical mind from really taking control. It's literally hijacking the logical mind. And as we soothe the child, as we say things like, I get it, it's hard, it's frustrating, so I'm speaking if that's a toddler, and if it's an elementary age school child, or even your junior high school age child, or your high school age child, to say, I get it, you're frustrated, I'm frustrated, you know it's tough, and sitting with that, really connecting on that without judgment. So we're connecting, and then we're redirecting, right? So we make that connection, and then we redirect to introducing them to brainstorming solutions that would work best for both themselves as well as you, the parent. Now, we don't want to be the ones necessarily to say, this is what you're going to do. We would like to encourage them to do the brainstorming. You come up with it. And by so doing, by them coming up with the ideas themselves, they're starting to re engage. So they're moving from the brainstem, amygdala, emotional response, shifting into the logical response. They're shifting into, well, here are some things that I would like to do. Instead of me just jumping into homework soon after I do my schoolwork, can I please have 15 minutes to play my game or check in with my friends, and then get into doing some work, right? So that might be something that they'll come up with. And we'll say, okay, as long as you are sticking to that 15-minute break and then getting into your homework, because, we don't want you after 10 still doing homework, that works fine. And so we're doing several things. We're engaging a logical mind, as well as helping our children to become more self actualizing. They're able to build their confidence and their ability to think of solutions and problem solve in an effective way. And that brings us to the end of today's topic, how to connect with my child when they have a meltdown, right? We spoke about the how the brain works. We spoke about integrating our brains as parents, and we shared one tip to connect and redirect, which was espoused by Siegel and Bryson. Please feel free to get a copy of their book, The Whole Brain Child. Really phenomenal tips. I am Mrs. Lloyd, my partner, Mr. Lloyd, and our contractors, Dr. Seif and Mrs. Rogers help with the Resilient Stars, as well as the math coaching programs that we offer to school districts. Our goal is to build resilient children by using data supported mental health and academic solutions. Please feel free to send me an email at Lloyd at rlrgresilientstars.com, or reach out to Mr. Lloyd at Lloyd at rlrgresilientstars.com. We look forward to working with your districts, to working with your families, and we hope that these videos add add value to your lives. Until next time, bye for now.